I am so excited to share with you a personal story that I have been experiencing over many, many years. It's going to be amazing. And it really focuses on how Sekhmet illuminates the magic possible when Venus is with the sun. And there'll be some other parts of the story too, but this is how I've been uh, going through this experience over many years now. So we're going to start back in 1997 when I was in Scotland to witness the standing stone circles and how they had built them to track the 19-year lunar standstill. At the time of this recording, we're coming back into the 19-year lunar standstill that will be exact in 2025. And while I was there on the Orkney Islands, I had this amazing vision that I was not expecting of the sun surrounding the pyramid. And so it was like the sacred geometry of the circle, the triangle within the circle. And so here's the kind of a vision of it. And on one level, the Great Pyramid could never be completely surrounded by the sun, but you can see there's the triangle with the circle inside. There's the circle with the triangle inside, and then a circle inside that, and squaring the circle, very high alchemy and magic that is connected with that. And of course, the circle with the triangle with the circle. This looks like the sun inside the pyramid here. And so these are sacred geometry symbols and have a lot of meaning that are connected to them if we think about the circle as being wholeness and oneness, and of course the sun representing light and life for our planet. Without it, we wouldn't be here, as well as that idea of wholeness and oneness. And then the triangle representing the mysteries, including the power of three, and the three sides of the triangle, and the body, mind, and spirit, or there's other ways that we could tune into the power of three. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because things started for me in regards to this particular Venus journey in 1998. And I'm going to share about some other things that have happened prior to 1998. But every 8 years, Venus comes back into this particular cycle, rises as morning star in the sign of Capricorn since 1974. And in 1998, my mother died in August, on August 18th of 1998. And she died just 2 days before the moon met with Venus at the seventh gate, at the root chakra gate. And I was able to co-facilitate her conscious death process, to be with her as she left her body, which is a whole other story I definitely want to tell sometime. And I was young. I was only 42 at the time, and I became the matriarch of the family, and I was just like so not ready for that. And I found myself in a little bit of resistance and also a lot of grief about losing my mom. But 3 weeks or so after she passed, I had this unplanned for, unexpected, out of body experience. And what happened was I was sitting at my desk working at my computer, and all of a sudden, I felt this energy just descend on me like it was pushing me down to the ground. And I knew I had to go lay down. So I went to lay down and immediately left my body, found myself going into the Great Pyramid and into the King's Chamber where there's a sarcophagus, and finding myself lying in the sarcophagus. Now, I'm showing also a different sarcophagus here with a lid on it because there's going to be more to this story. But anyway, I go into this sarcophagus and I find myself rising up out the top of the pyramid into a yellow light. And I was kind of surprised that it was a yellow light. And I was like, isn't this supposed to be a golden light? But, I was in my altered state. And that was why I asked that question. And I encountered an ibis-headed being. And I knew it was one of the Egyptian gods. But in my altered state, I really couldn't remember who he was. So I asked him. And he said his name was Thoth. So I thought, okay, that sounds familiar, but I wasn't really thinking about who that was either. And so what I found out later is, of course, Thoth is the inventor of writing, the creator of languages, the advisor of the gods, and the representative of the sun god Ra. And that gives Thoth a connection to Sekhmet. We'll see how that comes along in a moment. So what happened was I came back into my body. All this happened about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And when I got back to my body, I was so altered. I could barely function. I think I spent a lot of time laying in bed just trying to reorient myself back into my being. And so I didn't think to do this until the next day. I was like, who is Thoth? I need to look him up. And I have a book called The Mysteries of Isis. So I got the book off the shelf and I started looking, and I found some things about Thoth of being the moon god and having to do with astronomy and astrology, and also having a connection to the number 8, which is a number I feel a strong connection to, and so many different pieces of that. And I was like, oh, very cool. This is awesome. This is a big book, and I just happened to open it up to a page that accounts for the priestess initiates that are enclosed in a black marble sarcophagus for 4 days as they undergo an underworld initiation. And I was like, what? And of course they have a lid on the black marble sarcophagus, and they would close the lid, and then they would undergo this underworld initiation. And if they underwent it properly, I guess properly is the right way to say that, then they would rise out the top of the pyramid and emerge onto a sunny plain, yellow light. I was like, huh, yellow light. I was on a sunny plain. And they meet Thoth as the ibis-headed god of wisdom, astrology, astronomy, and the moon, along with other Egyptian gods, including Isis and Osiris. And then when the initiate would return to their body, having survived the hazardous underworld journey, she would have completed her initiation as a winged priestess. Now, I didn't have the lid on the sarcophagus on my body, or when I went into the sarcophagus, I didn't have that part, but it described so much of my experience. And I imagine this is Thoth leading the initiate, the soon-to-be winged priestess. And here's the Great Pyramid, and here's here's like a black marble sarcophagus, here's a different kind of sarcophagus. But it just was like, I couldn't believe how it was so like my experience that I had just had the day before. It just blew me away. Now, the Winged Priestess, I didn't find a lot about. There's a novel that's been written by somebody called The Winged Priestess. And I did find this image of a Winged Priestess sarcophagus from the 4th or 3rd century BC that just kind of blew my mind. So I thought, maybe there's something more to this than just whatever the stories were that I had been reading about. So in September of 1998, after I had this experience, we were leaving for Faywood Hot Springs. And Faywood Hot Springs is between Deming and Silver City, New Mexico. And there is a standing stone circle there. You can see it pictured here. You can see at least some of the stones that are aligned to the horizon and to the different sunrises of the solstices and the equinoxes. And there are 12 stones in the outer ring. And these stones represent also the 12 archetypes of the signs and the constellations. And there's a center stone that you use to align to these stones. And I just had this feeling that this was where I needed to go to spread my mother's ashes, because before she died, I asked her where she wanted to be, what she wanted her ashes, and she said, I don't care, you figure it out. So I'm like, okay, I'm taking her to a sacred site, and I'm spreading her ashes there. So what I was sharing this story about having this encounter with Thoth with my priestess circle. And one of the women in the circle had this book called The Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. She gave me a copy of it. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like, how is this happening to me right now? Oh my God, so amazing. And as I was looking through the book and seeing all these things, it's the as above, so below. That which is above is the same as that which is below, and that which is below is the same as that which is above, and all these different amazing things in the Emerald Tablets. And there was part of me that just suddenly knew that Thoth was going to be saying something about the 12 and the 1. And this was something we'd been working with in the priestess community, but also recognized that from the astrological perspective. And so I was looking and looking and looking, and I couldn't find anything. And finally, I just opened the book and laid it open on my desk and was working on some other things. And then I just looked down and I saw that I had opened it up to a page, and my eye just went right to this Thoth describing the key to Shamballa, or Shamballa, depending on how you want to say that. This place of that people want to go to. It's like a place of peace and enlightenment and perfection and amazingness. So, and he basically said, "Open thou the way of the 12 and the 1, so I may pass to the realm of wisdom." Whoa. I was like, okay, I'm definitely taking my mother's ashes to Feywood, and that's what I did. It was just like the magic of this was just amazing. Now, what was interesting is that let me just go back. The When I took her ashes there in 1998, it was at the and spread them on the equinox. It was the day that Venus went into the underworld, was within 10 degrees of the sun, and was technically in the underworld. And so I was just like, whoa. And we had these events twice a year, usually in May and in September, and in honor of the equinox in September. And so it was just great that I was going to be there anyway, and got to do this. And one of my best friends, since college, was there, and she had lost her mother 2 years before. So we spread my mother's ashes around each of these 12 stones, and also the center stone. And we did it late at night after everybody had left the stone circle. And we just went back up there to do this ceremony. And we called in all kinds of amazing things. I don't even remember now, it's been so long. But I just remember being in this place of just like reverence and awe of what we were doing. And by the time we were done spreading all of her ashes, my friend Indigo said to the universe, to our mothers, both of our mothers on the other side, "Can you just send us a sign that you're like pleased with what we've done, and we're complete?" And within a minute, and maybe even less than a minute, it just seemed like it happened almost instantly. There was a shooting star that went across the sky, and it was one of those long, slow moving shooting stars. And we were like, okay, cool. We are complete here. And it felt just amazing. So then 9 months later, I go back to Feywood, and here's another image of the stone circle. This is me describing how the stones are lined up and how they work and all of that. And several of us decided to spend the night in the stone circle. And I had this like lounger chair, bed, lounger, I guess is the best way to say it. And I decided it was a Sagittarius full moon. I decided to spend the night by the Sag stone. Now that's this stone, and this is the backside view of that particular stone. So each stone is related to an archetypal energy, and this stone is the Libra stone, but it's also the equinox sunset, seeing the sunset and the shadows cast. And it's just this amazing place. If you ever get a chance to go there, we've done events there. It's been a while. We may go back because it's just so magical. So as I'm sleeping, I start to have this like, my heart starts racing and my breathing starts getting crazy, and I start to wonder if I need medical attention. Like, I don't know what's going on, and I think maybe I'm having an allergic reaction to something, but I don't know what. Like, it just didn't make any sense. And so I breathed through it, and I got through to the next day. And when I woke up, I found all these ants in my water bottle, and I had taken sips of water through the night. And I'm like, man, I think I just drank a bunch of little red ants, these little tiny red ants. And I later realized I had been bitten by these ants all over my body, and I was having a reaction to the ant venom. That was what woke me up in the middle of the night. And so the next morning, or when I got up, I went to the Sag stone, and I was looking at it, and at the base of the stone was a little small owl, like a stone owl that somebody had left there as an offering. And I was like, interesting that an owl was there. Like I felt like I almost died that night, and with that crazy heart racing thing that was going on. And so, what I also saw was little tiny bits of bone. And I knew they were my mother's bones. And I went to every single stone after that and found the little tiny bits of bone that we had spread. Her ashes, the ashes were gone, but the bits of bone were still there. And that just was also like another amazing thing for me. So later, I am back in Tucson and I'm in a store and I see a magazine, Shaman's Drum, and there's an article on the cover that's talking about the shamanic initiation by ants. Of course, I had to get that and read that, and it described how they would set it up so that the initiate would be bitten by ants, and the ant venom would create an altered state. And so this was just like, whoa, okay, wow. Now I have a whole different experience or a whole different understanding of this ant thing that had happened to me. And one of my priestess sisters, the one who gave me the book on Thoth the Atlantean, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, said, "Oh, you got initiated by the ancestors." And I was like, yeah, that sounds right. That sounds exactly right. So this is a was another powerful event that happened right as this cycle was getting ready to complete. This Venus cycle was getting ready to complete. A new cycle started in August of 1999, and by then I was knew that I was going to Egypt. And part of the reason was because my priestess community, Nicole Christine, who founded the Awakening the Priestess Process Within, in 1994, and I was in her circle in 1995, and we had just done all kinds of amazing things, and I learned so much, and I'm so grateful for that experience. She had this information download that she had gotten that we needed to do a return to wholeness, take the feminine back through time and space, and especially related to the Magdalene energy back to where her birthplace was in Israel, but also through Greece and through Egypt and through other places that she's said to have been, and France being one of them, and all of that. And somehow I just knew my part was to go to Egypt. And because of my small inheritance from my mother, I was able to go on that trip. And that happened in the synodic cycle of Leo, because it had just passed, and it had just passed through the crown chakra as morning star when I went in October of 1999. And so there's a whole lot that happened on that trip that was also mind blowing. But the main thing I want to share here is that I was able to go to the Temple of Karnak in Luxor, where they have a statue of Sekhmet still in the temple. Most of them have been removed, but it's still in the temple. And we all had got to spend some time with her, and I was blown away. I was moved to tears. Literally, I looked into her eyes and I felt the tears come into my eyes. It was such a powerful experience of the presence of this statue. And I found that as I was gazing at her, my relationship with her was strengthening, and I had a sense of restoration and healing that happened within me that was just amazing. So this is me with Sekhmet in her temple in Karnak in 1999, and I just love this picture that I'm like just leaning into her, and I think we can all lean into her. Now, so just to kind of bring this all together, Thoth and Sekhmet are often connected, and this is an image that's found at the Temple of Karnak, where we were, with Thoth and Sekhmet, and they were both considered divine healers, and they were often depicted together, and there's stories that connect them together. I'm not going to tell those stories now, but I will say that Sekhmet was married to Ptah, and her son was Nefertum, who was the precursor to Asclepius. They were healers. They had their own way of healing. And here she is holding her son's hand. And so they were known as the Memphis Trio, and there were statues of them all over Egypt, because they were considered to be the divine gods, goddesses, and expression of the masculine, feminine with the divine child. really powerful. So in 2015, I got to go to the Sekhmet temple in that's outside of Las Vegas, and this is Sekhmet here, and this is one of the doorways with the full moon rising out the doorway. So just some other Sekhmet magic, and my Sekhmet altar that that I've had at different times when I'm really honoring Sekhmet. And this is me when I was 18. So I figured she needed some support from Sekhmet, so I put her there. Now, I visited the temple in 1999, and in 2006, I had a dream, and this is after the next Venus cycle in Capricorn began. It began in January of 2006. And so I turned 50 in March of 2006. And a couple weeks later, I have this dream where I'm standing in front of this cave. Now, this is kind of an image of the cave, although it didn't have the roots around it. But I was looking into this dark abyss, and I just knew that I should not enter that cave unless I was invited. So I turned to walk away, and I heard someone calling me, and I turned around and I see Sekhmet. This is a kind of a statue of her, but not a statue, actually her in this glowing yellow golden light. And she's motioning for me to come back. And she waves her hand in front of the cave, and it illuminates. And there's a circle of women sitting at the center, and they're inviting me to come and sit and be initiated by them. And I was like, whoa. And so I go through this whole initiation process. It involves baths with crystals and all kinds of crazy things that were going on. But the main point is that it was Sekhmet who invited me into this experience. So 6 months later, I have this. I see this book, A Woman at the Edge of Two Worlds by Lynn Andrews. Lynn Andrews her books have been very important to me. I read her book, Medicine Women, in like 1988, 89, and I decided I wanted to live a magical life. And that has created a magical life for me, as you can tell. Anyway, I see this book, and I decided to get it. And as I'm reading the book, I come across this passage that just blew me away. At the change of life came the highest initiation that you would live through as a woman. It was your initiation into your sacred and spiritual work. Younger women were not allowed into the sacred caves that held this knowledge. These caves were called different names around the world, but I will speak of what I know. At the entrance to these caves, some exist in the dream time, some in the physical lodge reality. There were guardians, keepers of the caves. I think that me seeing the image as Sekhmet was she was as acting as guardian of the cave. And the guardian that will meet you, will become familiar with, is Woman at the Edge of Two Worlds. She is the goddess who initiates all women into their sacredness. She takes you through the labyrinth of mystery and change as you become changing woman, and helps you discover the highest plateaus of consciousness. These initiations have been forgotten because the patriarchy has become so strong in our existence. And what I didn't know at the time was that I had had my last menstrual cycle in September. I actually hadn't had it yet, the last of it yet, in March when I had the dream, but I had the initiation. And so I was in menopause at the time. And so that just blew my mind, like, whoa. And Sekhmet, of course, was the one who opened the way to the cave for me. So she's a solar goddess. She wears the solar disc like a crown. And just something else to know is in 2014, in this cycle of Venus, 8 years ago, was when we started Venus Alchemy. And so we've worked with Sekhmet a lot because she's wearing the solar disc like a crown. But the thing that I never really got in a full visceral sense was that because she's wearing the sun, Sekhmet is Venus with the sun. Because she wears the sun. She's with, so it's all about how she is the divine feminine facilitating death and rebirth. And she does also represent different parts of the Venus cycle according to Egyptian mythology. But this was just like, whoa, why did I not get this before? It's like, crazy, crazy wild. Anyway, so this is just a brief kind of recap of how this cycle has been so significant for me, and you may want to go back and check this out yourself. So in 1974, I graduated from high school, and that was the first time Venus rose as morning star in Capricorn. I graduated from high school. I went to college. I dropped out because I hated my girls' college that my grandmother sent me to. I lived in hell for 4 months with my father, who was depressed and angry and so on. And I wound up going to MIU, Maharishi International University, in April of that year of this particular, as the cycle was ending in 1975. And so that was huge. That was like such a massive, huge experience for me to be at this university, where I felt for the first time in my life that I was with people like me, whereas before I always felt like I was sort of the odd person out. In 1982, my first son was born at home, and that was during the morning star phase. In 1990, my fourth child, also a son, was born in the hospital after I tried to have a home birth, in the morning star phase. In 1998 was when my mother died, and I've talked about that. In 2006, I had the cave dream. My divorce was final from my second husband. I moved. I went to Scotland for the lunar standstill, and Peter and I got married in October of 2022 when Venus was exact with the sun. A big life-changing thing, and we did that on purpose because we wanted to create a new way of being in relationship, and that has worked. So we're coming up on our 16-year wedding anniversary at the time of this recording in 2022. So 2014, we started Venus Alchemy. We returned to Feywood for the crowned chakra ceremony, and in June of 2015 at the summer solstice. And then in 2022 is when Sekhmet told me she's this underworld symbol of the Venus cycle. And I've been putting all these insights together, and there's probably more going on with that, but that's what I've got so far. So these are the kinds of things that we can look at in our own personal Venus cycle, own Venus returns. This is not my Venus return. This is, but this cycle, since it started in 1974, has had significance in my life. So I want to complete this story. I hope this has inspired you to really see how powerful the Venus cycle can be, and to see how we can work with the Venus process to understand and to create the magic and to be a part of the magic. And sometimes the magic just happens to us, and sometimes we're co-creating it. I feel like I've really done both, especially in this cycle. And I just want to say, the part of the reason that the Venus alchemy came together was because we needed to come up with another way of doing something that I had been asked to do that I didn't really want to do. And this was what was on fire. This was what lit me up. And we had about 3 weeks to get it together in 2014. And so, and then it's just had this life of its own. It's just amazing. So in completion here, we can do this Sekhmet goddess prayer, invoking divine feminine power of surrender, death, and rebirth. And I just got, the other thing I've been inspired with the Venus cycle is to write these prayers. And you can hopefully be inspired to write your own, or to use this if you feel like you want to use it. So here we go. Beloved Sekhmet, keeper of the mysteries of death and rebirth, eminent and renowned as a facilitator of total transformation, thank you for assisting me in feeling held, supported, and safe. As I face my fears and shadow side, thank you for transmuting all that holds me back from knowing and expressing my true self. O mighty Sekhmet, thank you for showing me the precious secrets of surrender. Help me to die a good and peaceful death. Guide me in surrendering to all that is in the way of living my true mission and purpose. Help me feel all my uncomfortable feelings, including uncertainty, insecurity, and self-doubt, as I transmute and transform them into confidence and courage, restoring magnificent cosmic wisdom, kindness, and compassion within and all around me. With gratitude, it is done, it is so. Blessed be.